Chair, Assemblyman Amiano, wanted to do some housekeeping things. I'd love to acknowledge Stephanie Hastings. She is a legal intern with our committee. How are you? Are you from Hastings, or that is your last name?
My last name's Stephanie.
Oh, Stephanie. All right. Well, you're acknowledged. And no longer under the radar. So, and then I wanted to make a motion from.
We need to take a quorum.
Yeah, let's do a quorum call first. Attendance.
Amiano,
Here.
Knight, Cedillo, Hagman, Hill, Mitchell, here, Skinner. We have a quorum.
And Ms. Skinner is ill and will not be joining us today. So I would like to have a motion to approve the committee rules that you all should have had for a long time. Okay. May we have a roll call, please?
Amiano,
Aye.
Knight, Cedillo, Hagman, Hill, Mitchell, Skinner.
All right. And also we have two bills that have been pulled. For those of you who may be here for them, it's item number 6, AB 61 Ang, and item number 11, AB 179 Gurel. Yes. Okay. Now we're going to look at the consent calendar. Could I have a motion? So moved. A second, please. I could second.
Second.
Okay. And a roll call vote, please.
Amiano,
Aye.
Amiano, aye. Knight, Knight, aye. Cedillo, Hagman, Hill, Hill, aye. Mitchell, Mitchell, aye. Skinner.
All right. Thank you very much. And
Well, I see Mr. Fuentes.
okay. And I see Mr. Fuentes has been sitting here patiently, taking notes on good committee practices from the master. And would like to welcome him to the table, please.
Got item number 5.
Item number 5, AB 142.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. I'm here to present on Assembly Bill AB 142, which is a reintroduction of my bill, Assembly Bill 15 from last year in 2009. This bill was passed out of the legislature, and a recent Supreme Court case makes this bill right for consideration, and that's why I'm here today. AB 142 is a simple measure that will not cost the state any money, but will contribute valuable due process protections to our criminal justice system. Current law requires that prior to accepting a guilty or no contest plea, a judge must advise a criminal defendant of the potential immigration consequences of that plea. Specifically, the judge must advise that the conviction for the offense to which the defendant is pleading may have the consequence of deportation, exclusion from admission, or denial of naturalization.
Here, I'll move the bill.
The court must allow the defendant additional time to consider the appropriateness of the plea in light of this advisement. This measure enjoys tremendous support. A recent Supreme Court case, Padilla v. Kentucky, I think highlights the additional need for this course, Mr. Chair, and would ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Your bill has been moved and seconded. Do we have witnesses?
Mr. Chairman, members, Dan Filisato on behalf of the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. While we don't have a position yet on AB 142, we have supported all of the prior versions. In Los Angeles County, we have a tremendous problem of defendants who are not documented citizens returning to Los Angeles County and California after a conviction. Many times they claim that they did not know it was a separate offense to return. Our office believes that if this advisement is given, hopefully we will see a reduction in the number of criminal undocumented undocumented aliens returning to California. And for those reasons, we've supported this bill.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members, Francisco Lobaco on behalf of the American Civil Liberties Union. For all the reasons my prior colleague indicated, we also support the bill. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Joseph Vigela on behalf of the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles. We strongly support this bill. It's a matter of fairness that the defendants are properly advised. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Is there any witnesses in opposition?
Mr. Chair and members, Corey Salzillo on behalf of the California District Attorneys Association. We're in opposition to the bill as we were to the prior versions, AB 806 and AB 15, which were both vetoed. The concern here is that the existing remedy for the failure to provide this advisement is that the judgment can be vacated and the defendant can withdraw the guilty plea. We have reports of defendants returning to court years after a guilty plea. They've completed their punishment and they assert that they didn't receive the advisement. This results in a prosecutor having to trying to track down a file that may not include the information and the file may not exist anymore. And that, of course, is only the result if the court decides not to vacate the guilty plea. So for that reason, we're opposed.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments from committee members? We want to welcome Assemblyman Hagman. None? Okay. Mr. Fuentes, would you care to respond and close?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill merely adds one sentence to the advisement that is already given in the criminal pleas. It would add mere seconds to the plea colloquy, and it would provide extremely valuable information as necessitated, we believe, in Padilla v. Kentucky. Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Fuentes, for bringing this bill forward. Many bills dealing with non-citizens that come before this committee are strictly punitive, and so I think letting people know who enter a plea of guilty or no contest know about potential consequences is very important, and ensuring that people know these consequences is possible for deportation makes a lot of sense. I'm happy to support your bill, and I recommend an aye vote. May we have a roll call, please?
Amiano?
Aye.
Amiano, aye. Knight? No. Knight, no. Cedillo? Hagman? No. Hagman, no. Hill? Aye. Hill, aye. Mitchell? Aye. Mitchell, aye. Skinner. It's on call.
All right, it's on call. Needs one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members.
All right, I'm looking at the sign-up sheet here. I have Mr. Mendoza. And this is items number 4 and 9, AB 123, AB 177. Both have an aye recommendation. Want to present?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. I'm here to present AB 123, which gives school administrators and local law enforcement the authority to address disruptions that threaten the physical safety of school children in preschool, elementary school, and middle school while they are coming to, leaving from, or attending school. The need for this bill arose from a lawsuit filed by the Center for Bioethical Reform against the Los Angeles County Sheriff and the Los Angeles Unified School District. In this case, the Center for Bioethical Reform held a demonstration outside of an LA County middle school. The demonstration included a truck displaying a billboard-size graphic photographs of aborted fetuses and an escort security vehicle equipped with a security cage, red and amber flashing lights, push bars, and an antenna mounted on the roof. The school administrators notified the LA County Sheriff's Department, and the Sheriff's Department detained the demonstrators based on determination that Penal Code Section 626.8 had been violated. The Center for Bioethical Reform filed a subsequent lawsuit. The lower court upheld the actions of the sheriff, but the Ninth Court of Appeals held that the Penal Code Section 626.8 did not permit school administrators to contact local law enforcement. However, the Ninth Circuit Court acknowledged that if the California legislature adopted statutory language to address the situation, the outcome would have been different. With me today to discuss some of the issues related to this bill is Virginia Strong Martin, representing the Los Angeles Unified School District, and also Lieutenant Billowit from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and Pam Gibbs from LA County Office of Education.
All right, 2 witnesses, 2 minutes each.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Virginia Strong Martin on behalf of LA Unified. I think Assembly Member Mendoza has done an excellent job in outlining the reason for this bill. It does, in fact, correct something that we feel was missing in the Penal Code Section 626.8, which does not, as written, address actions of conveying disruptive messages in and around school where the disruption does threaten the immediate physical safety of school children where they're leaving or coming to school. The proposed language casts a wider net on the list of instances related to individuals entering the realm of the school campus who are intent on the disruption of normal activities, something the group in question was definitely intent on doing, as stated in their testimony. So we do acknowledge from the governor's veto message last year that the burden of proof would be high, but had this proposal been available at the time of the incident, the Ninth Circuit Court's decision might have been different. So in essence, we feel the bill is a remedy for schools that could be faced with similar circumstances and would allow them the necessary means to deter unforeseen disturbances on campus, or at least prosecute violators who threaten the safety of students. And we would ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Next witness, please.
Lieutenant Wayne Billowit on behalf of Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. That's so well put by Assemblymember Mendoza and Virginia Strong Martin. We urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any witnesses in opposition or support further?
Mr. Chairman, members.
We're trying to keep it till 2, but
Mr. Chairman, members, Dan Filizzato on behalf of the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. We believe this is a necessary bill. Thank you.
okay.
Harold Boyd, United Teachers Los Angeles, in support.
Joshua Golko with the California School Employees Association, also in support.
Thank you.
Christine Ward, Crime Victims Action Alliance, in support.
Curtis Hill of the State Sheriff's Association, support.
Any other witnesses in support? Any in opposition? All right, seeing none. Any questions or comments from committee members? All right, Mr. Hill moves. All right, do we have a second before we? Okay, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering, again, this is the second time we've heard this, and Mr. Mendoza, and I understand what you're trying to get to, but also with the freedom of speech, the courts have that, burden of proof thing. I think it's going to be very high to reach to say that this person has not only intently caused disruption, but the same question I had last time is, why don't we do high school? The same circumstances that we're looking at K through 8, why don't we go K through 12 on this?
Right. There was a concern with ACLU that it probably might have impeded freedom of speech just because high school students are a little bit older. They want to have that flexibility for older kids, older teenagers, but they felt that the need was necessary, that it was necessary for the younger kids, elementary and middle school.
Well, I don't think this bill can impede the freedom of speech. We're just looking at the very small finite chance that someone wants to physically do harm and disrupt in a certain way, that the courts will have to construe that particular way. But I mean, I think those same kind of barriers would be for both. Want to protect our students on both sides, but just still kind of confused where that line is of, we're going to have, the freedom of speech issues on both sides, which this shouldn't affect. But on the high school students, I'd like to protect them as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hagman. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Mendoza, would you like to close?
Just respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mendoza, and pardon me, Sacramento allergies. Again, thank you for bringing this forward. I did support this last time, and I understand the issues around the First Amendment protections of free speech, but we also recognize that oftentimes, particularly in these circumstances, this was based on a particular incident, that those issues are not always absolute. I supported your bill last year, and I urge my colleagues to do the same. We have a roll call, please.
Amiano.
Aye.
Amiano, aye. Knight. Aye. Knight. Cedillo. Hagman. Hagman, aye. Hill. Hill, aye. Mitchell. Mitchell, aye. Skinner. Bill's out.
All right, the bill is out. Mr. Mendoza, your next bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, my next bill is AB 177, the Parental Accountability Act, cleanup legislation. This bill clarifies the intent of AB 1291, the Parental Accountability Act that I authored in 2007 and was signed into law. AB 1291 will give judges the option to assign anti-gang parenting classes to parents of a minor who has committed a first-time gang offense. This year, AB 177 will give judges more discretion to assign anti-gang parenting classes to parents of minors for a first-time offense in which a judge finds factors exist that may indicate gang involvement or may lead to future gang involvement. According to the National Gang Center, juvenile delinquency is a precursor behavior to gang membership. Virtually all youth who join a gang will have some sort of delinquent involvement before that. The Los Angeles Police Department says that the acts of a juvenile delinquency, such as truancy, rebellious behavior, and violent behavior, are risk factors for gang involvement. Once a child joins a gang or commits more serious crimes, it's too late to intervene and make a difference in that child's life. Parents need to be taught how to spot warning signs and how to communicate with their children when the child starts showing signs of being involved with the wrong crowd or being at the wrong place or doing the wrong thing. Anti-gang parenting classes will target parents who need help with their kids and also help those families where there are younger children in the home. With that,
All right, and this is proposed with amendments.
Yes. Yes, we did accept the amendments, yes.
All right, witnesses in support, just 2 minutes each, please.
Mr. Chairman, members, Dan Filizzato on behalf of the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. As proposed to be amended, we believe that AB 177 is an excellent prevention bill. These classes are being offered in Los Angeles County, and unlike AB 1291, where we had to wait till where there was an actual gang offense, this bill will give us the ability to have the parenting classes when there's indications that there might be future gang activity. We believe that that is an important distinction and, like I say, an excellent preventative measure. We ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Chairman, members, Lieutenant Wayne Billowood on behalf of Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. We agree with the representative from the District Attorney's Office. Prevention is the key here, and this is a key to our prevention success. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Chairman Jeff Frost, representing the California Council for Adult Education. This program is being piloted in the Los Angeles Unified School District, the state's largest adult ed program. A lot of positive feedback has come out of this. We think that the amendments in this bill are a good addition, and we support the bill.
Thank you. All right, are there any further witnesses in support? Please approach the mic. Just express your affiliation and support.
Crime Victims Action Alliance, we support the bill as proposed to be amended. Thank you.
Curtis Hill with the State Sheriff's Association in support.
Dorothy Holzen, League of California Cities in support.
All right, any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? All right, seeing none, any comments? Or
Mr. Chair, I'll move with
Mr.
amendments.
Sorry?
I'll move with the amendments.
Move with amendments. Second? All right, thank you so much. Mr. Mendoza, you want to close? Or
Mr. Chair, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
All right, roll call, please.
Amiano?
Aye.
Amiano, aye. Knight? Knight, aye. Cedillo? Cedillo, aye. Hagman? Hagman, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. Mitchell? Mitchell, aye. The bill's out.
All right, the bill is out. Thank you, Mr. Mendoza.
Mr. Chair, thank you, members.
Next on my sign-up list is Mr. Donnelly. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning. I understand you have two bills to present, AB 175, number 8, and number 14, AJR 1. Would you like to start with number 8, AB 175?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, AB 175 is really a simple bill. It removes the sunset date for an existing program, and that program allows us to transfer prisoners out of state to a private prison facility without their consent. And it's been an important component to trying to combat the overcrowding here in California. And having overcrowded prisons puts everyone at risk. It puts the inmates, it puts the correctional officers, it puts visitors. It's been a massive problem that has also, as many of you know, contributed to tremendous costs with the federal receiver taking over our prison system, mainly the healthcare component. So the goal of this bill is simply to remove the sunset date so that this tool is available for us to use so that we have the flexibility to control our prison population and the overcrowding. It doesn't do anything new, but it will help us to control the costs and to reduce overcrowding.
Thank you. Do you have any witnesses in support?
I do not.
Okay. Are there any witnesses in support in the audience? Are there any witnesses in opposition? Please approach. 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Amiano and members of the committee. Jim Lindberg on behalf of the Friends Committee on Legislation of California. The out-of-state transfer program was intended as a short-term relief measure in order to give the legislature more time to figure out a solution to the prison overcrowding problem. Numerous experts have concluded that we cannot incarcerate our way out of the problem, and we simply can't afford to keep avoiding the problem. We're going to have to look at sentencing and also our failure to rehabilitate people while they are incarcerated. The legislation also eliminates a prisoner's right to revoke their transfer to the extent that prisoners should be allowed to participate in decisions that affect them. We think that they should have a say in whether or not they remain out of state. This is consistent with the goal of rehabilitation. We want people to make good decisions when they re-enter back into society. Lastly, we're also concerned about the impact on visitation, family visiting, and the negative consequences that this also has for rehabilitation. Research has consistently demonstrated that maintaining a strong family connection reduces recidivism. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Mr. Donnelly, it's my understanding that this would certainly eliminate the sunset, but is there funding to move forward with this if we were to do what you're suggesting here?
This bill is really going to be neutral, fiscally neutral, because right now the program exists and we're simply using the same dollars that
is there
are
funding
there.
to go forward with the program if we were to continue the program beyond the sunset?
We have to incarcerate these people, whether we do it out of state. If we bring them back, if the program is allowed to end on July 1st of 2011, we will bring 10,000 prisoners back here, and we will pay to incarcerate them here at a much higher cost. So, yes, there is funding. This way is more efficient and cost-effective. If we allow this program to end, it's an existing program, then it will cost us more.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. I appreciate the fact that we're in policy committee, but since you raised the issue of cost, my question is a fiscal one. First of all, it's my understanding in the governor's proposed budget that the funding has been eliminated for this program. So that kind of responds to Mr. Hill's question. But my question is, it's my understanding that to the cost per inmate to actually house, transport inmates out of state is more per capita, if you will, than to house inmates here. So as you raise the issue of costs, have you factored that in?
Well, that's an interesting theory, that it costs more. Our average cost is $52,363 per bed. It costs $26,000 and change to do it out of state. Now, there is some transfer costs.
Mm-hmm.
That's additional. The transfer cost is not another $26,000. So in terms of the cost, it's actually, we're saving the taxpayers money. It gives us that flexibility because right now we've got people piled up in cafeterias. Think about that. If you're a correctional officer, you have people who are not containable, and if in the middle of summer it's burning hot, people get angry, we could wind up with a riot on our hands.
I completely agree with you that the current conditions in which we're asking California residents to live in while incarcerated are unacceptable. So again, my question really is, and my information is different in terms of what the actual cost when you consider transportation, transport, back and forth when they have to come here for parole hearings, those kinds of things. So that was my question.
Right.
Thank you.
No, I think it's a net savings. And then as far as the other issue you raised about the governor's budget.
Mr. Hagman.
Since it's not passed, I guess it's...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think under the terms of AB 900, the average cost has to be less to go out of state than it does cost in the state. Otherwise, it's not allowed to do it. And I hope that we get to the stage where we don't need to export our prisoners and house somewhere else. But until we get to that stage, it seems like a useful tool for us to have. As far as the question for visitation, the way we have inmates moving up and down the different state prisons as it is, it may be actually closer to be in Nevada than it will be into Northern Cal if you're in Southern Cal or something like that sometimes. So I think some of those things may be mitigated. So I'd like to move the bill, Mr. Chair.
All right, the bill is moved. Is there a second? With the second, Mr. Donnelly, would you like to close?
Yes. I would just like to say I would like to ask for your aye vote.
Hey, thank you, sir. And Is this the first bill you've presented?
Yes.
No hazing. I was just asking. Well, you did very, very well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So just to encapsulate, for me and I think some of the other members, we've heard that there are some concerns about this bill. Involuntary transfers were enacted as an emergency provision with AB 900 negotiations. The sunset was intentionally put into the statute because it was never meant to be permanent. Another concern is the governor is proposing to slash this portion of the budget, and the data that I have does not really support that these transfers would be cost effective. I think the gentleman, one of the witnesses, mentioned the negative impacts on moving prisoners. I think your intent is admirable, and I would like to put aside a lot of our differences and come up with a solution and a humane solution for what you're trying to accomplish with this bill. But I do oppose this bill and have recommended a no vote, but would be happy to work with you on it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Would we have a roll call, please?
Armiano?
No.
Armiano, no. Knight? Knight, aye. Cedillo? Cedillo, no. Hagman? Hagman, aye. Hill? Hill, no. Mitchell? Mitchell, no. Skinner? It's 2 to 3.
Okay, 2 to 3. The bill fails, yes. Mr. Donnelly, you could ask for reconsideration. There's not a lot of promise there, just to be candid, but I wanted to tell you your options. And you have another chance at bat.
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman. I have a much more popular idea.
You're in trouble now.
I would like to present AJR 1, which is simply, it is a joint resolution to ask the federal government to reimburse us for the costs of people who are incarcerated in our state prisons illegally, people who are in the country illegally who have committed a crime. It's called the State Criminal Alien Assistance Program, or SCAP, and currently we are under what is essentially an unfunded mandate where the federal government doesn't enforce the border. People come here, they commit crimes serious enough to go to state prison, and we pay for it. And we've just talked about the costs, and we can debate how much it costs us, but the bottom line is this is money that would be much better spent on schools or public safety or somewhere closer to home than supporting people who have come into our country illegally and committed crimes.
If I could just jump in, I do support your efforts, and I am going to support the bill, but I do have one concern. Page 1, line 1, states that the federal government has a moral, in air quotes, obligation to reimburse the state. I'm of the opinion that, in fact, the federal government has a statutory obligation, not a moral obligation. Would you be okay with removing this from the resolution?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, the bill's been moved and seconded. Any comments? This is a proposed amendment. Yeah, we'll do it next. All right, you want to close or?
Sure.
Fine.
I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
All right, roll call, please.
Armiano?
Aye.
Armiano, aye. Knight? Aye. Knight, aye. Cedillo? Cedillo, aye. Hagman?
No, Cedillo is no.
Oh, excuse me? Cedillo, no.
Did you say no or aye? Aye, pardon me.
Cedillo, aye. Hagman? Aye. Hagman, aye. Mitchell? Aye. Mitchell, aye. Hill? Aye. Hill, aye. Skinner? The bill is out.
The bill is out. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think Mr. Solario is next. No. Oh, Mr. Gurrell, I'm so sorry. What is his rank? All right, sir. This is AB 178, item number 10.
That's correct. Chairman Amiano, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to present AB 178. AB 178 is a bipartisan legislation. It's a fairly simple conformity bill that enhances our safety in our communities by adding accountability in our justice system. It's considered a conformity bill because it, in essence, conforms the current process for release of a defendant by their own recognizance OR or one who signs a bail agreement conforms that same process to the process that would undertake if a inmate was released from jail pursuant to a court-imposed mandate to release inmates due to overcrowding. Right now, that does not take place. Current laws and penalties don't apply to inmates who fail to appear at court or commit new crimes after the release due to jail overpopulation and a court-imposed release requirement due to that overpopulation. AB 178 will address this gap by requiring that these inmates sign a release form promising that they will appear in court and not commit new crimes, just like these defendants who are released by the courts pursuant to release agreements. This bill also adopts penalties for those who break this covenant. This is a common sense measure for the safety of our local communities, especially during this time, challenging times, when we have growing jail populations and are experiencing overpopulation in many jurisdictions. I respectfully ask for your support in this matter and would like to give a moment to my joint author, Assemblymember Doss Williams, to also address the committee. Thank you.
Welcome, Assemblyman.
Thank you, Assemblymember Grell. Mr. Chair, as we enter an age where mandated releases may become more common, it's vital that we have a system in place where those released are held accountable to show up to court and to adhere to the conditions of the court. We believe that this is just replicating the system that we have for voluntary releases onto releases that are federally mandated. And we have support letters from the Santa Barbara County Office of the Sheriff, Chief Probation Officers of California, ALADS, California State Sheriff's Association, the City of Oxnard Chief of Police, and the LA County Probation Officers Union, and Riverside Sheriff's Association, and we ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair and members,
Support.
Corey Salzillo on behalf of the California District Attorneys Association. I'll be brief. We're the sponsors of the bill. We are in a sort of a new era. We have a new class of defendants who are not on bail. They're not released pursuant to their own recognizance. And this bill attempts to update the law to reflect that reality, that there's a gap in what happens, or in the type of inmates or defendants that are being released and what happens with them. A majority of California's counties either have a court-imposed population cap or a self-imposed population cap. And the lack of specific statutory guidance as to a release agreement that has to be signed saying that the person's going to appear, that they'll apply, that they'll abide the terms of their release. It just doesn't exist. And so we think this updates the law. We think it fills a gap, and we'd ask for your support.
Thank you, sir. Any other witnesses in support?
Christine Ward, Crime Victims Action Alliance, also in support.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Louis Brown on behalf of the Chief Probation Officers of California in support.
Curtis Hill with the State Sheriff's Association in support.
All right, any witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, the bill's been moved. Second, we got a second. Any comments? Mr. Grell, would you like to close, or Mr. Williams? Tag team today.
Well, my joint author and I are just would respectfully ask for your aye vote, and thank you for the opportunity to present the bill.
Certainly, I now pronounce you. Anyway, this is a very, very sensible bill, and I'm happy to recommend an aye vote. So if we take a roll call, please.
Amiano?
Aye.
Amiano, aye. Knight?
Aye.
Knight, aye. Cedillo? Cedillo, aye. Hagman? Hagman, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. Mitchell? Mitchell, aye. Skinner. That bill's out.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Solario.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. If it's okay with you, I'd like to present AB 220 first. First, I do want to say, when I was chair, I could never pull off those jokes, so you're doing quite well. You're doing quite well and moving through the agenda quite well, so very admirable. Members, this is a simple bill that requires the Governor's Office of Gang and Youth Violence Policy to prepare recommendations to the Governor and the Legislature on how to streamline funding and grants for anti-gang and youth violence programs and to prioritize programs that are evidence-based. We had a very similar bill passed through the legislature last year. The governor at the time, we have a different governor now, but that governor vetoed it, saying that it'd be too much extra work, but it in fact is the job of the person in this office to provide recommendation on these type of grants. So I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Move the bill,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair.
All right, the bill is moved, seconded. You will witness one of.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. Ignacio Hernandez on behalf of the California Attorneys for Criminal Justice and also on behalf of the California Youth Build Coalition. We're in support of the bill. Since it's been moved, I'll leave it at that.
All right, and clerk needs to know who seconded. Was it Mr. Knight? Second. All right, fine. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Slario, would you like to
I think
close?
somebody else wants to add in with one more support.
Just Casey Elliott on behalf of the City of Santa Ana, and we're also in support of this measure.
Mr. Slario.
I ask for your aye vote.
All right, thank you. This is a good bill. I think it's badly needed, and particularly in streamlining funding. And I'll support your bill today. Recommend an aye vote. If we have a roll call, please.
Amiano?
Aye.
Amiano, aye. Knight?
Aye.
Knight, aye. Cedillo? Cedillo, aye. Hagman? Hagman, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. Mitchell? Mitchell, aye. Skinner? The bill's out.
All right, congratulations. Next.
Thank you. The next bill I'd like to present is AB 355. I do have some witnesses, so if they could come forward. This bill, just to simplify, Chairman and members, there are conflicting provisions in law with reference to contracting out of particular civil service workers. We, in AB 900, had a provision that we inserted in the Penal Code with reference to the contracting out of services including clinical social workers and psychologists. There's been issues with some contracts being done by CDCR, and as part of that process we found out that that provision in AB 900 that I authored was in conflict with another provision in the government code. This bill would seeks to repeal the AB 900 penal code language so that there's not a conflict. But let me do say that there is a process. If there are no civil services that can provide a certain type of work, there is a current process that would remain where there could be that type of contracting out. This bill seeks to clarify and eliminate that duplication of codes on this subject.
All right, thank you. Witnesses in support, 2 minutes.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. My name is Cliff Tillman. I'm a business, I'm a business agent for the American Federation of State or County Municipal Employees, Local 2620. We represent over 5,000 health and social service professional employees. That covers over 65 different classifications in 9 different departments in the state. In particular, we represent clinical social workers and psychologists who work within the Department of POC, which is the Perot Outpatient Clinic. In 2007, with the adoption of AB 900, the Public Safety and Offender Rehabilitation Service Act of 2007, CDCR was directed to implement enhanced programming that includes substance abuse treatment, mental health care, and academic and vocational education. We applauded that intent then, as we do now. In 2009, Local 2620 challenged the Department of Corrections after it contracted out services of existing civil service classifications that provide day treatment and mental health crisis services for parolees. Our position to the State Personnel Board was that the duties and the responsibilities as outlined by the contractors are all within the scope of the above stated titles. The State Personnel Board agreed with us and directed that CDCR terminate the contracts within 6 months. AB 355 will continue the intent, spirit, and purpose of AB 900, but it will delete a provision in AB 900 that has been identified as in conflict and is in violation with a State of California Government Code 19130 that address the issue of contractors. We therefore respectfully request a yes vote on AB 355.
Thank you, sir. Next witness.
Hello, my name is Amy Kim. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I work with the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation in parole at the Parole Outpatient Clinics located in Los Angeles. We provide rehabilitation services to the mentally ill, the violent offenders, and the sex offenders on parole. We work closely with law enforcement to provide forensic mental health treatment in order to protect the community as well as for the successful reintegration of our parolees. We provide services such as individual therapy, group therapy, psychotropic medication monitoring. We provide crisis counseling, which involves acute hospitalizations with the help sometimes of law enforcement, and suicidal, homicidal crisis counseling. We also provide case management services that include housing, financial, employment, medical, educational, pro-social behavioral guidance. We have anger management, sex and violent behavior therapies, and monitoring and transportation assistance. We reduce recidivism and we protect the community. I've been with the state for now about 10 years on parole, and I've seen contractors come and go over the years, and they've never lasted more than a year or two. We find that funding only to contractors for mental health treatment and crisis counseling services to our population is not only a duplication of services, but it's a waste of money. It's also disruptive to the community of care for our continuity of care for our patients, and a safety risk to the public, as there's no containment model of treatment performed by any contractors to provide forensic mental health, and the patients fall through the cracks when they do not return to us for treatment after the contractor's funding have expired. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in support? Just please, affiliation and... all right, Mr. Steele moves. There's a second.
Oh, I'm Elaine Janelle. I represent ASME Local 2620. I'm a psychologist in the prison system, and I support the bill.
Thank you very much. Sir?
James Norton with ASME here for any type of questions.
All right. Anybody? Any other witnesses in support? All right. Any witnesses in opposition? Please take the...
You could go back.
Yeah.
You could stay.
All right. Thank you. Take your seats, please. All right, sir. 2 minutes.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Rusty Seelix, California Council of Community Mental Health Agencies and Mental Health Association of California. First, I apologize for the lateness of our opposition. We just got our letter into you yesterday morning. It wasn't until Friday that we understood what this bill did. We worked very closely with Senators Lowenthal and Steinberg to create this program known as the Integrated Services to Mentally Ill Parolees. It was through legislation in 2007. It actually wasn't originally part of AB 900. It was on a parallel track. Senator Steinberg's bill actually was vetoed due to other provisions not related to this. That bill actually was approved by this committee, and that there was also a budget trailer bill we were working on, and it wasn't until late last week that we realized that this language actually authorized that program. That program is not what the proponents described it as being. It is not anything like what is done by the Department of Corrections in its parole outpatient clinics. It is a very specialized program that began with Senator Steinberg's legislation, actually when he was in the Assembly, of integrated services to homeless people or people at risk of homelessness, almost all of whom had experienced incarceration, hospitalizations in the past, and it worked. The program, within 6 months, reduced incarcerations by 85%. We have anecdotal stories of these programs that took 2 years to get the contracts going. They finally got up and running in 2009. I'm not familiar with the Personnel Board decisions. There are people here who could speak to that, and the Department of Corrections, I know they're still analyzing it. They're in the back. They could speak to that. But what I want to tell you is even if the Personnel Board decision is upheld, it's our understanding that without this legislation, the department could contract with counties who could operate these programs and who do operate the programs the correct way. I am highly skeptical that this type of program could ever be operated successfully by the Department of Corrections.
Thank you, sir. Next witness, please, 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Chris Geiger, and I represent the ISMIT providers that actually do the services. And I just want to echo the sentiments here about the fact that it's such a different program. The Parole Outpatient Clinic basically runs on a 9-to-5 model where the mentally ill parolees come in and see a doctor, get medication. They may or may not be enrolled in a group or activity, that kind of thing. Our program actually has our staff out in the community, meeting them where they are. We're 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We actually go out and work with the clients when they're having problems with their housing. We walk them through the processes they're trying to apply for their benefits and those kinds of things. So we are much more of an in vivo kind of an environment than the Parole Outpatient Clinic. So I think there's a really fundamental difference between what we offer in the way of services to these very seriously mentally ill parolees than what POC does. Furthermore, we were having preliminarily, we've only been in operation for a year, but we've got some phenomenal outcomes. Our recidivism rate is much lower than the comparative cohort. We're getting enormous savings in hospitalization reduction costs, enormous savings in getting people housed. Many more people are getting on benefits. And so this is really sort of a unique program that really should work more in tandem with POC, which it is currently, rather than as a replacement function, which is the way it's sort of being represented.
All right, thank you. Are there any other witnesses in opposition? If you would state your position and affiliation.
Zach Olmsted, Homeless Policy Director for Housing California. And, I would add that as we worked with others to create this program, we did so because the recidivism rate was really high with as businesses being done.
I'd love to hear more from you, but
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So also
all right, just up to the mic, affiliation and position on this.
Hello,
topic.
my name is Joshua Buffa, and I'm a mentally ill parolee. I just wanted to say that this program that I'm with, one of the day treatment programs, has changed my life. The proof is in the pudding. I was never been able to stay out of prison since 2004 for more than 90 days. I've been out for more than a year now.
Thank you, sir. Next witness, please. Affiliation and state your opposition.
My name is Dr. William Bell. I'm with one of the programs that has been contracted out, and I wanted to speak to the existing law.
I'm sorry, sir. We're beyond our time, so thank you. Any other witnesses in opposition, please? Just name, affiliation.
Johnny Galliano, certified addiction specialist. I'm opposed to this bill.
Thank you. Ma'am?
My name is Regina LeGrand, I'm the program director for Sacramento County ISMIT program. And I just wanted to let the panel know.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't mean to be rude, but we have time constrictions.
I'm Duke Dolphus with the Sacramento ISMIT program.
Thank you. Any other speakers in opposition?
Robert Small, one of the caseworkers with the program.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Solaria, would you like to respond?
Yes, just a response in close. This bill is not about private sector workers versus public sector workers and how the jobs are similar or different. It's about the fact that you have competing provisions in law that conflict with one another. So the CDCR will still be able to contract out if they feel they need to. We're just saying it should be under the traditional general code language, which has been existed for a long time, instead of the AB 900 provision, a provision that I authored. And as you all know, I'm a private sector kind of guy myself, so it's not that we don't want to ever see private sector or nonprofit workers do any of the work. It's just we have two conflicting provisions in law. This bill would clarify that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Do we have Mr. Hagman? We have a motion? And second? Okay.
So I'm not clear. You are editing, in essence, and that there is no, will there be a consequence that the programs that everybody here is discussing that has significant, substantial support, that these programs will not be impacted, and that basically what you're saying is that you are editing language within various codes so that there's some harmony.
There's duplication. There's conflicting codes.
Right.
With respect to any of the...
that there's harmony in the language, but that there's no impact, no real impact on these programs. Is that what you're saying?
I'll let my witness respond to that.
Janus Norman on behalf of the American Federation of State and County Employees for the record. The impact has already been felt by a ruling by the State Personnel Board. What has basically happened is that the department went out and issued 7 contracts to private contractors that were within the same scope and practice of the jobs that our members perform. The State Personnel Board ruled that those contracts are invalid and need to be terminated because that work is already being performed by civil service employees. If the department, and notice the department wasn't here, but if the department decided that it needed specific specialized services for a specific specialized segment, the existing government code that was referred to, Government Code 19130, already provides for that. So we've had one ruling by the State Personnel Board ruling that these contracts are invalid and ordered that those contracts be void in 6 months. The department appealed that ruling by the State Personnel Board. The State Personnel Board then upheld the ruling with regards to these contracts already being within the scope of our civil service employees. So the reality is that this bill will not inflict an impact on those contracts. The State Personnel Board has already ruled that the department did not have the authority and the authorization to issue these contracts, and that's the real issue here. We don't have any problem with the work. We don't argue that those providers aren't providing sort of good work. What we're arguing is the department did not accurately follow existing law. And we're not the ones saying that. We literally have 2 rulings by the State Personnel Board that says the Department of Corrections did not follow existing law.
You want to repeal the conflicting, Mr. Cedillo?
Really interesting, but that's really non-responsive to my question. That's one. 2 is on the question of the Personnel Board that you brought up. Are you in favor of the decision or do you oppose the decision?
We're in favor of the Personnel Board decision. We challenged it under existing law, which we're allowed to do.
I'm not questioning any of that. My question to the author was, will this bill have an impact on the services that these people are receiving?
You know, I think that the summary
not the reason why. The question isn't the reason why.
I got it. The summary is that we have the Personnel Board that have said those contracts are in violation of law, so they would be impacted. They would be impacted.
Because the other approach would be to then modify the code so that it would permit this type of activity, right?
Right. Yeah, so we're not trying to, grandfather in the contracts that have been provided because the Personnel Board has found out that it's been a violation.
All right, thank you both. Mr. Hagman, if you would indulge me, I think there's a representative from the department here. Maybe you could clarify for us.
Yes, my
before
name's
Mr.
Darby
Hagman.
Kernan. I'm with the
Thank
Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, and we don't have a position on the bill. But I did want to clarify that the Attorney General is appealing the decision, and there's a hearing in April. I think it's the 18th. And so litigation is continuing on this issue.
All right.
And that's just the clarification I wanted to make.
Okay, Mr. Hagman, sorry.
Well, that's one of the questions I had right there is if this litigation goes through, then this outcome be decided based on the court's ruling at that particular point, maybe even before this becomes signed into law, if this hearing's in April, unless it gets appealed again, because it is in litigation right now over that thing. So basically we have 2 conflicting laws, and the courts are trying to determine what is the proper procedure. Does the older take effect, or older law, or the newer AB 900 take precedent over the older law? And that's what's been the...
And I would just add to that, because that's a good observation. The litigation is there because there's 2 conflicting pieces of law. The legislature created those 2 conflicting pieces of law. We should fix those 2 conflicting pieces of law by eliminating the one that is more recent and letting that piece of law that has been around much longer be the prevailing and only existing code.
But that's one of many different options we have to fix that, though, correct? Right. You could sit there and go after the older particular procedure, or I assume, and the authors of AB 900 had a reason to put this in a place, even though they knew those services existed within their sphere of use. So there's a reason why they put that in. I just don't know maybe the context that was put in AB 900, though.
Well, we have a solution here before the committee, and I respectfully ask for your vote.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or
Mr. Chair?
comments? Mr. Hill.
Just to follow up on Mr. Cedillo's comments or questions, the programs that were outlined today and discussed by some of the members of the public, if this bill were to pass, will CDCR be able to continue those programs, not necessarily in the same manner, but will those people be served in the same manner that they're being served today, or will they be served?
I think because the argument is that the current workers provide the same scope of services that current state workers could provide, that type of work. But if CDCR felt that the work was different, that some outside provider could provide in a different fashion, then they could follow government code law regarding contract out and have that type of work provided.
Did I hear, is the representative from CDCR still here? I guess the question would be, will they receive, will the people who are here today continue to get the services that they're getting today by someone?
Not under the current practice that's currently happening. This is taking that away, that authority.
Right. Oh, taking the authority for those particular programs, but the services that they're getting, the needs that they have, the mental health services that they need, will they receive those through CDCR?
Through state employees.
They will, through the state employees.
Through the same, and it
I
may
understand.
be more limited. The services may be more limited.
Well, that's the question.
Mr. Cedillo.
There's a discussion about these services being 9 to 5, and then versus, and there's representations that these services are provided 9 to 5. I assume Monday through Friday by the state. There's other representations that these programs are much more expansive, that they're in the field, that they're comprehensive, that they're integrated with other programs related to housing, other issues that mental health people have. And so, I mean, these are two distinctions. It's the question I think Mr. Hill was asking, not are they going to receive services, but that the services that are provided now, that these people are all here receiving, are those the same quality, the same template, the same with the same amount of time, will those services be provided?
And I don't know the details on that. I think the state services that we provide are very good, and we do a very good job. But under this bill, the services that are being provided by these providers would stop, and it would be done by state employees. So that is the clarification.
In the short term, that's not that later on, if there was a need, that CDCR could contract. But with respect to
our ability to
all right,
contract.
don't talk over each other.
Okay, no, I'm sorry. I just want to say that this limits our ability to do the contracting.
All right, Miss Mitchell.
So to follow up on Mr. Cedillo's comments, the nature of the bill focuses on the who.
Correct.
The nature of Mr. Selix's letter of opposition is the what. It's the content of the service. It's the design of the service. Correct, Mr. Felix?
Please take a seat and just respond to the question. Don't elaborate, okay?
Yes, our focus is on the what, on how the services are designed. The who is not the issue to us. It's the
Thank you so much. All right,
Mr.
committee
Chair?
members? Yes, sir.
One point of clarification, briefly. Our contract already allows us to provide the same type of services currently being provided by the contractors listed. The question is whether the department desires to work with our unit, because our contract provides for it, to develop the kind of program that does it in the way, 24/7.
So the what
That's the issue.
So the what could then ultimately be consistent.
Yes, and we're already in all 58 counties. So the question is not, can we do it? The question is just how the department wishes to move.
All right. Do we have a motion? And a second. All right. Mr. Solario, the opposition did come on rather late, but I really think that this bill does recognize the value of and function of civil servants while allowing for contracting in certain cases. And obviously, based on the State Personnel Board, I agree that the conflicting sections should be repealed. I also I will support this bill today, but just want to give you a heads up that appropriations, the discussions may change in the trajectory of the discussion.
Sure.
So nonetheless, I recommend an aye vote. Can we have a roll call, please?
Amiano?
Aye.
Amiano, aye. Knight? No. Knight, no. Cedillo? Cedillo not voting. Hagman? No. Hagman, no. Hill? Aye. Hill, aye. Mitchell? Aye. Mitchell, aye. Skinner, it's on call, it needs one. Cedillo not voting to aye, the bill's out.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, our next is Ms. Huber. Yeah. You notice how I ignored Willie Blood? That was good of Gil. Yeah.
What we've done was we've identified his mother passed away. I know that they buried her last week. They're going to be sad.
Okay, Ms. Huber, thank you for your patience. And you have two bills. Which one would you like to address first?
AB 8 first.
AB 8, item number 1. Proceed, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This AB 8 was really something that came up just in October of this last year as CDCR announced the planned closure of the Preston Youth Facility in Amador County in the city of Ione. It was through this process that we realized that CDCR did not have a coherent process for looking at our 5 remaining DJJ facilities and determining which of those facilities should close and in which order. It is undisputed that we need to close a facility, that we have a declining population and that we are shifting the responsibility of those youth over to the counties and that eventually we will be closing almost all of those facilities. And that's not disputed with this bill. But the analogy I like to use is take a school district. If you had a school district and you had 5 schools and you have declining enrollment, do you close your best school first? That's really the question. Based on, we had 2 hearings on this subject with the Joint Legislative Audit Committee. We also had 2 town halls in the community. Based on all of the feedback that I have received and all of the documents that CDCR has produced to justify their closure, I have concluded that there is not a coherent process by CDCR to determine which of our facilities are the most successful for the youth. We have, of those 5 facilities, we know that, for example, the Preston Youth Facility has the highest graduation rates. Over 90% of the kids who get sent to Preston actually complete a high school diploma or GED equivalent. We know that they have the highest feral compliance, which for those of you who aren't familiar is the lawsuit that requires that we provide additional rehabilitative services to our wards. It has the most community support because the entire city of Ione grew up around this facility, and it's where wards go throughout the state when no one else can successfully program them. They call Preston and they send them to Preston. So given all this overwhelming data that I have received and working with the community, it was clear to me that we may be in jeopardy of making a decision in the state of California that will forever impact the wards that we currently have custody of. We will be sending all of these kids away from the facility where they are being successful, forcing them into situations where instead of being in a dorm room type of programming atmosphere, we're going to put them in individual cells and lock them up. And I don't think that that's in the best interest of the state of California, and I certainly don't think that CDCR is making the right decision. So AB 8 requests that we put a 6-month hold on any closures for everyone and for the legislature to do our job of oversight over these decisions so that we don't find ourselves a year from now or 2 years from now saying, oh, we should have closed XYZ facilities instead of closing Preston first, because now we've limited our options and now we've hurt the youth. So I have a couple of witnesses here in support, if you don't mind.
We're allowing 2 witnesses, 2 minutes each.
Hello, my name is Pam Handel. Somebody please start your stopwatch. I'm not good at this. I am a teacher in DJJ. I started my career 20 years ago at Preston, but I currently work in Stockton. Behind me there are several employees of Preston and DJJ. Some are teachers. A lot of people are going to tell you a lot of things about reasons why to keep it open, and Ms. Huber has talked about some really good ones, but a lot of us are here because of our students, our kids. So we want you to think about that. We really do a good job with the kids, and we care very, very much for them. One of the things that it worries so many of us is that we have watched this deterioration over the last, it was 7 years. 6 institutions closed without very many reasons as to why. Many of them were very good programs too. It usually came down to an economic budget cut, and that was really it. That's not a reason to close a facility or a school. You look for its ability to be used. Preston is probably the most flexible of the institutions, and it can really house a lot of young people. It can school them, educate them, keep them safe, give them a sense of home, because it is a very flexible institution and very home-like. We would like you to really consider this bill for the rest of the department too, because this continual roll down the hill like a snowball, closing this department, I'm afraid that this society is going to wake up someday and wonder where CYA, California Youth Authority, now DJJ, went. It is not a good, I know that there are budgetary problems right now, but it's never a good idea to make a financial, societal decision in an emergency, in a panic, when someday there may be some really heavy-duty considerations as to where young people go. I don't think we really want young people like in the 1880s when they started to decide whether or not they were going to build Preston or not. And they looked at Folsom and San Quentin and saw young people housed with adults. I don't think the society, I don't think California wants to wake up and find that.
All right, thank you very much. Very well spoken. Our next witness, please.
Mr. Chairman and members, Paul Curry on behalf of the Correctional Supervisors Organization. We're in strong support of this bill. What was interesting when we reviewed this bill and we looked at the underlying issue, this quite honestly is closure by dartboard. The map was hanging, someone turned their head, threw the dart, Preston got hit. That's what we're going to close. We think that a measured, thoughtful process is really what needs to take place. There's a lot of good things going on at Preston, but there's also good things at other places, and there are some other places that, quite frankly, we would like to see those places closed first because they're in greater need of infrastructure and just programming and things of that nature. We've got to have a place for these kids. These kids are coming home. They're going to come home as adults, and they're going to impact our jails and our prisons even longer. So I certainly would like to ask for your support.
Thank you very much. Any witnesses, further witnesses in support? You just step up to the mic, name and affiliation.
Janus Norman on behalf of ASME in support of the bill.
Craig Brown for the California Correctional Peace Officers Association in support of the bill.
Judy Sanchez, School Secretary, Preston Youth Correctional Facility. In support.
Thank you.
Carlos Morales, Senior Librarian at Preston. I'm in support of the bill.
Karen Herrera, Special Education Coordinator, in support of the bill.
Thank you.
Judy Levinson, teacher at Preston. I'm in support of the bill.
Barbara Clifton, retired CDCR teacher. I'm in support of the bill.
John Plass, Chairman of the Amador County Board of Supervisors, and on behalf of the board in support of this bill.
Martin Ryan, Amador County Sheriff, in support.
Melissa Herrera, my mother works at Preston, in support of the bill.
Thank you. Any further witnesses in support? Seeing none, any comments from the committee before we go to opposition?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Huber, didn't we score one of these facilities being shut down in this year's budget, I guess? And so if we don't shut this down, where do we come up with the funds to replace that?
No, actually, the legislature, and I didn't vote for this, but the legislature in last year's budget scored a $200 million unallocated cut to CDCR. And in trying to come up with the $200 million, they did cite closing Preston as one of the ways they were going to try to achieve that. But in further probing CDCR, that savings will not show up until the 11-12 budget. So the budget year that we scored the savings in, CDCR never actually achieved those budget savings.
Okay, thank you. And I totally agree with the sentiments that your witnesses said of doing this under the budget, under the very close of night, so to speak, is very harmful to the ripple effect of public safety. And I'm afraid we're doing our current budget somewhat similar to that, and with what we're doing. I just don't know if setting off all these facilities for 6 months really helps that financial gain or not at all. But it's more of a budgetary issue than a policy one at this point. So.
Yeah, if I could just address that issue. What the 6 months does is it allows the legislature to have that kind of oversight on, let's talk about all 5 facilities. Let's talk about their graduation rates. Let's talk about their programming. Let's talk about how successful they are in fighting recidivism. And let's make an informed decision on which one to close rather than just the dartboard example I thought was a good one. It's just, well, we got 3 in the north, 2 in the south. Let's close 1 in the north. We'll just close that one. You know, it's not the kind of way that we should make policy decisions about these youth.
All right, thank you. Are there witnesses in opposition? And again, we'll allow 2 witnesses, 2 minutes, and then expressions of support or opposition.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Owen Lee, lead organizer at Books Not Bars, representing hundreds of families of incarcerated youth throughout the state. AB 8 attempts to prop up a failed institution that is full of violence, not rehabilitative, and not effective at increasing public safety. The Division of Juvenile Justice has an 80% recidivism rate, and Preston is the oldest and most remote facility, forcing families to drive hundreds of miles to visit their loved ones. DJJ youth prisons are operating at less than 50% of capacity, and Preston requires $265 million in capital inputs. Preston needs to close. Thanks.
Thank you. Next witness.
My name is Laura Brady. I'm a parent of the former Preston ward, and I will tell you this. It needs to be shut down. My son, yes, he got his GED, but not from a teacher. I paid for all his paperwork and books, and he self-studied, and he took the GED on his own. It had nothing to do with the teacher. When he was in special ed, I would drive from Fresno to Preston only to get turned away because supposedly somebody didn't show up for a meeting that they called me up and had me come. I spent almost a year visiting my son while he was in Tamarack. Every day, every Sunday, drove from Fresno to Ione on a Sunday morning to visit my son for a half hour to talk him out of killing himself. Preston is a bad place, and it needs to be shut down. The bottom line is prisons were not built to employ people and to bring economic growth to a community. In a perfect world, we wouldn't have prisons. So, I mean, I've been to Missouri. I've seen wonderful things done with youth by teachers, by social workers in their own communities. And I'm sorry, but I cannot support this bill at all. Preston and the rest of the facilities eventually will be closed down, but Preston is a horrible place. And I don't know if you've ever been there, ma'am, but you need to go.
Thank you.
Okay, my son spent 4 years in there.
All right, thank you. All right, just now if we could have name and affiliation, position. These are witnesses in opposition. So,
hi, my name is Barbara Jackson. I'm also a parent of former Preston, but however, I don't know how rehabilitating they think they are. But
ma'am, I'm afraid that the time is gone. So if you could just state your name,
it
affiliation.
needs to be closed down.
Thank you so much.
He's still in jail.
My name is Joaquin Diaz de Leon. I actually was in Preston, and I find it rather compelling that you say that there's so much success rate when they should be lined up here saying that it is success rate. I'm actually one of the 2 that didn't recidivate. When I was in Preston, I actually conspired.
Sir, I'm very, very sorry to interrupt. I know you have a lot of strong opinions on this, but now we're in the part of the meeting where we just identify ourselves and affiliation. But thank you for being here.
Okay.
All right. Next witness.
May I say one thing? I just think that it's not actually being assessed because somebody that has been formerly incarcerated, his opinion is now being heard. So I just want to point that out.
Thank you.
Thank
I don't
you.
want to be rude, but we have to keep within our time. Any other witnesses?
Yes, my name is Lourdes. Sorry. My name is Lourdes Duarte. I'm also a parent. My son was at Preston.
And you're in opposition?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, I don't want to be rude to you, but we
unfortunately, you are not going to be able to hear our story.
Well,
but I have a question to the young lady. I understand you want to hold the job for
all right, thank you
teachers,
very much.
but remember that we're also your constituents.
Any other positions? Any other?
Good morning, Glenn Backus for Drug Policy Alliance in opposition to AB 8. Thank you.
All right. Any other witnesses in opposition?
Jim Lindbergh, Friends Committee on Legislation of California, also in opposition.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Huber, could you briefly close?
I think if we did adopt this bill, all of the people who spoke in opposition today would be allowed to have a voice, and we'd be able to hear everyone's input on all 5 facilities, which is exactly what this bill is trying to achieve. There is no budget savings from closing Preston right now. This delay won't impact the budget or break the budget bank. It is just going to cause us to look at the 5 facilities. They are going to close. I agree with the opposition. We are going to be closing these facilities, but let's do it in an orderly way that makes the most public policy sense for the state of California. I urge I vote.
Thank you very much. Ms. Huber, I'll tell you, if I wanted somebody on my side, it would certainly be you. I think you really represent that point of view very, very well, and I appreciate the enthusiasm and the cheerleading, believe me. Saying that, though, I don't want to be cast as a villain here, but I really do have serious concerns. My take is a little different. I think this is contrary to the budget that we'll be voting on, hopefully, within the next century. And actually, full disclosure, there's 2 members of this committee who voted against this on the budget items, on the budget committee. And aside from wanting to close this facility, the governor's 2011 proposed budget notes that the DJJ population has dropped from 10,000 to fewer than 1,300. I can appreciate that this issue is important to you and your district and for labor. However, I also support the governor being able to control facilities based on conditions and population as he sees fit. I have a none recommendation on your bill today, and do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move the bill. I share your concerns about both the decline in population, 10,000 down to 1,200 or whatever the exact number is today. But I think that there is value in terms of, given the decisions we do have to make, some systematic approach, and that looking at the time is not a time period that seems to be dilatory. In fact, it seems to be reasoned, given the limited information we have. So I would move the bill and ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second the bill.
All right, there's a second, and let's have a roll call, please.
Amiano not voting. Knight? No. Knight, no. Cedillo? Cedillo, aye. Hagman? Hagman not voting. Hill?
Aye.
Hill, aye. Mitchell? No. Mitchell, no. Skinner? So on call it needs 2.
All right, on call it needs 2. Ms. Huber, you're up at bat again. AB 67.
Thank you very much. On a completely different note. AB 67 has come through this committee before. I actually had the same witness with me, Sheriff Martin Ryan from Amador County also. This bill did pass out of the committee last year. It passed the floor. It passed the Senate Public Safety Committee. It passed the Senate floor, made it all the way to the governor's desk, only to get vetoed by the governor because of amendments taken in this committee last time. So I'm back again with the same request. We have a disproportionate problem with methamphetamine dealers in California. To put the statistics in context for you, Californians make up 40% of all meth treatment admissions nationwide. California has 60,007 meth admissions, where New York, by comparison, has 668. Texas, 3,738. For some reason, whatever it is, we are exploding with our methamphetamine problem in California, and I don't think that we're doing enough. What AB 67 attempts to do is to treat meth dealers, we're not talking about the users, just the dealers, the same way that we treat cocaine, PCP, and heroin dealers. And that is, if they're found to be a dealer, there's mandatory local jail time. It's 180 days that allows local law enforcement to try to clean up the mess and to really treat them the same way. The theory here is you got to deal with both the supply side and the demand side. We need more programs on the demand side, but you got to deal with the fact that you've got these dealers that just go right back out into the street and just keep reoffending, and we are exploding in California with this problem. We've got to do something to address it, and I propose AB 67 is that measure.
Thank you very much. Witnesses, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Martin Ryan. I'm the sheriff of Amador County, and I'd like to share with you a few statistics from my county with regards to the methamphetamine problem and why I'm here in support of this bill. Our Amador County Combined Narcotics Enforcement Team in 2009 conducted 143 cases, 31% were meth-related. In 2010, 145 cases, 39.5% were meth-related. From probation, in 2009, 168 pre-sentence report, 36% involved persons that were currently involved or had a history of methamphetamine use. In 2010, of the 147 pre-sentence reports, 38% were meth-related. Those who are currently on parole, who were tested by urine sample, 309 positives, almost 30% of those were positive for meth. So those that are even on probation now can't seem to get out of it. Operation CARE, that deals with our sexual assault and domestic violence. They run a safe house in our county. From fiscal year 09-10, 31 safe house clients, 12 of the offenders that put them there used meth. In comparison, 1 marijuana and 1 with cocaine. From July 1st of 10 through 3/9 of this year, out of the 18 safe house clients, 61% were users of meth. 11, 2 marijuana, 1 OxyContin. Child Protective Services. In 2009, of the 35 cases that went to petition, 58.5% dealt with children and meth. In 2010, the 25 cases that went to petition, 44% went. All of the kids that were involved with meth, involved in petitions by Child Protective Services, went to foster care. This is a problem that not only exists in my small rural county, but statewide as well, and nationally. It affects law enforcement, district attorneys, public offenders, courts, the corrections, schools, social services, victim witness, public health, hospital emergency rooms, and service organizations that serve these communities.
Sarah, I need you to conclude.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I urge your support.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, members, Corey Salzello on behalf of the California District Attorneys Association, we're in support.
Sir.
Mr. Chairman, members, Dan Filizzato on behalf of the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. We supported last year's measure and urge your support on this year's.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other witnesses in support?
Curtis Hill with the State Sheriff's Association in support.
Christine Ward, Crime Victims Action Alliance in support.
You? Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? 2 minutes each.
Mr. Chairman and members, Francisco Lobaco on behalf of the ACLU. I'm just listening to the proponents of the bill, and everything he says is true. And everything in this bill can be done. The judge can do all this right now. There are a lot of reforms that need to be done to the criminal justice system. Many, many reforms that need to be done to the criminal justice system. One of them is to start eliminating the mandatory minimum laws. States around the country are doing this. It boggles my imagination as to why we need now to impose new mandatory minimums when, one, the judge can issue these sentences if in fact the facts of the case warrant imposing 6 months, 3 months, 2 months, 1 year. We are in the process of moving, last time I listened to the Budget Committee, 38,000 inmates to the locals over the next 5 years. Locals are screaming at us, screaming at you to give as much discretion as possible in terms of what to do with the local populations. For me and for many of us, it just makes no sense, given the overcrowding of the institutions in the local level, to start imposing new mandatory minimums. In fact, we should be moving away from requiring mandatory minimums in the local jails. The bottom line is it can be done already. As Schwarzenegger said, it's not necessary. We're opposed.
There. Good morning. Glenn Backus for Drug Policy Alliance. Related to the earlier testimony that 40% of admissions in California are for methamphetamine and that a high number of people on probation are there for methamphetamine-related charges, that's related to the voters passing Prop 6 in 2000, which provided $120 million a year to expand our drug treatment options and to refer drug offenders possession only into drug treatment. So we do have the highest rate in the country because we had the best system until it was defunded. Briefly, mandatory minimums are unproven. They're expensive but an unproven intervention. around the country. They are being repealed or amended. 2 points, each case according to its merits. Let the judge, jury, prosecutor, and defender do their job and decide what's right in that individual case. That's the foundation of American law. Secondly, in the environment of realignment, let each county decide how to manage their jail population, who should be released according to who is the greatest or least public safety threat. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any other witnesses in opposition? Any questions or comments? Would you like to clip? Opposition. Sorry.
Jim Lindbergh, Friends Committee on Legislation, also in opposition.
All right, any further?
Chris Libb, Twombly, Ella Baker Center for Human Rights. We oppose.
Okay. Questions or comments? Mr. Cedillo?
How do mandatory minimums or maximums, or does this bill rather, supplant discretionary decisions of judges?
It just sends a policy message that we treat meth dealers the same as cocaine, heroin, and PCP dealers. Those laws are already on the books, and all it is the policy message that those dealers are on parity with those same dealers of PCP, heroin, and cocaine.
Right, that's a little non-responsive to the question.
No, does it supplant discretion outside of the jail time? No. Could the judges decide that they could serve longer? Yes.
Less?
If the bill passes, they would get 180 days of local jail time. So no, they would not have discretion to go below what PCP, heroin, and cocaine dealers get.
Okay. Mr. Hack.
Thank you. Super, do you know how many counties are under federal or overcrowded conditions right now?
No, but to address that concern, because I had the same concern, and I called the sheriffs and asked, would this be a problem for you given the overcrowded situation? And the response I got overwhelmingly, and the reason I think that the sheriffs have been here in support, is this is such a big problem for us. We would rather those guys be in our jail and let out other people, because these are the ones that are really creating the most problems.
And I'm actually in favor of this bill, but I'm just wondering how many of these 180-day sentences are 32 out of the 58 counties actually doing 180 days at this point? And my understanding is that many of them are not doing their full time because of overcrowding conditions anyway. So I think some of the concerns brought up by the opposition of having the sheriff be able to mandate or to utilize the population based on overcrowding is already kind of done by fact of the federal overcrowding law, that some of these people are being released when they feel like they're the best time they can do. So, thank you.
All right, Ms. Mitchell, sorry.
He keeps doing it.
I just wanted to say that it's clear, based on the testimony in your opening statement, that methamphetamine use in California is at a pandemic level. I think my standing fundamental concern is what was alluded to by Mr. Cedillo in terms of beginning to turn the tide as policymakers around legislating judicial authority around minimum mandatory sentencing. So that's my concern.
Would you like to close?
Yeah, and I'll just address that as my close, is right now we have very few people serving mandatory time for cocaine, heroin, and PCP, and there's the argument to be made that that's because of the mandatory jail time, that it's working. We have to do something on both sides of the equation, the supply and the demand, and this is the way to send the message to the judges that we as the legislature take this as a very serious problem, and we take it just as seriously as we did cocaine, heroin, and PCP. And until we have a massive revamping that changes the minimum jail time for those three drug dealers, categories of drug dealers, then I think we should at least have parity for now.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Huber, again, thank you. I do have the same concern. I do take this issue very seriously, which is why I'm skeptical sometimes of things that come across a little too simplistic, even though the motivation is definitely a sincere one, but I still have the same concerns. I think 120 days in jail is adequate punishment, and the bottom line is that methamphetamines is a Schedule II controlled substance. Cocaine and heroin are Schedule I. I do think the penalties should correspond to our scheduling. Again, not to bore people, but the overcrowding. I think judges really need to maintain the greatest discretion. I have a none recommendation, but I will be voting no. And if we could have a roll call, please.
I'll second.
Sorry.
Amiano?
No.
Amiano, no. Knight?
Yes.
Knight, aye. Cedillo? Cedillo not voting. Hagman? Hagman, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. Mitchell? Mitchell, no. Skinner? That's on call. It needs one.
Needs one. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Logue.
Mr. Chair? Yes. I'm sorry, I think I neglected to ask for reconsideration on AB 8 because I think you did rule that one not on call, but actually. Oh, 8? No, the previous bill.
That's fine. Thank you so much. Mr. Lowe, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and I would like to commend you on the way you run a meeting. I like the way you handle your business here today. Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank you for allowing me to present my bill, AB 44, which is joint authored by Assemblywoman Galgiani. Normally, I have a lot of talking points on a bill that I roll out, but this bill is so important to me, and the message from Assemblywoman Galgiani is so compelling that I'm going to basically tear up my notes and hand this over to Assemblywoman Galgiani.
Thank you, Assemblymember Logue. I'm going to talk about why this bill was prompted. July 20th of last year, my sheriff and I were notified that serial killer Lauren Herzog was going to be released from parole back to Stockton within 5 days. Lauren Herzog and his partner Wesley Shermantine had originally been convicted of 6 murders in San Joaquin County. Lauren Herzog was convicted finally of 3 murders and convicted of accessory to a 4th murder. The 5th murder charge of Robin Armtrout, who was stabbed 44 times, was dropped. An appellate court judge reversed the jury decision, reversed 3 first-degree murder convictions, and the 4th murder conviction was forced to a retrial and was finally plea bargained down because Lauren Herzog turned in his partner, Wesley Shermantine. State law requires notification to victims, and we did the best job that we could in the 5 short days that we had to do so. But there were many more victims that weren't notified because they were the family members of those who had gone missing, whose bodies had never been found. Because Mr. Herzog and Mr. Shermantine were expected of not just killing 6 people, but possibly up to 22 more. I had received calls from many victims and their family members during this time. There were the daughters of Philip Martin, who 20-plus years earlier had been taken to school by their dad, like always, and that day their father told them that if he didn't return to pick them up from school, that they were to go to a neighbor's home and to call their mother and to wait. And that was the last time that they saw their father. San Joaquin County, we got lucky. I insisted that the courts and the Department of Corrections look for mistakes in his parole calculation. They found a mistake, and that bought us an additional 60 days. So instead of having 5 days to contact victims, family members, and some of the 82 witnesses who testified against them, believing that they would never see the light of day again, we had this additional time that we needed. We signed family members up with stay-away orders, and we kept them out of San Joaquin County. But I know that this was an injustice to Lassen County because Mr. Herzog was placed on parole in a rural area, remote, where many of the areas are hidden from public view, so that Mr. Herzog could potentially make people go missing as he had in my community. This is one case, but this is one case of many like this, where the Department of Corrections needs additional time to work with local law enforcement and communities so that communities are better prepared and so that victims and witnesses are not forced to live in fear because their victimizer is placed back within their community. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you so much.
Move the bill, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I second, but I've got.
All right, there's a second and a question. Why don't you ask your question?
I appreciate the bill. We had a similar situation. Ours was a person who was convicted when they were 16. They didn't get out until they were about 36. I think they set a record for staying in as a juvenile for that long period of time. But they had sexually assaulted and killed a 2-year-old in Northern California, and they were going to be released into our district. The notification was very quick, and we didn't have much time to notify the people that we needed to in Southern California and find out why they were going to be released in Southern California and all of the particulars. So it was kind of a scrambling week that we went through. And the notification is very important. Basically, the more time you get, the more you can learn about the crime. You can understand what's going to happen. And so I applaud the bill, and we're looking at it right now. I understand this is for adults. Now, this might be a very simple question. These are adults that were convicted when they were adults. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so not released or not convicted in juvenile court, and then maybe moved on after they were 25 years old.
And, another part here, Mr. Chairman, was that when this criminal was being released into our district, into Lassen County, he was accused of killing 22 people, and they were going to release him in a town called Doyle, made up of 50 people. That's pretty scary. So we're asking you to help us with this, so we have a greater notification. Fortunately, we're able to work with them and move them onto the prison site in High Desert in order to protect the community. So thank you.
All right, thank you. So the bill has been moved and seconded, and Assemblymember Logan and Assemblymember Galgiani, thank you so much for bringing the bill forward. I really don't have any problems with lengthening the notification period. I did have some concerns with the portion that limits the ability to change one of these plans. Some issues just can't be anticipated. I understand there's a proposed amendment, so I will support your bill today. And if we can have a roll call, please. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. In opposition. An important. Go ahead.
Curtis Hill for CSSA in support.
In support. All right. Any in opposition? Thank you. So you see, your presentation was so compelling, we neglected the process. All right, now if we could have a roll call, please.
Amiano?
Aye.
Amiano, aye. Knight? Aye. Knight, aye. Cedillo? Aye. Cedillo, aye. Hagman? Aye. Hagman, aye. Hill? Aye. Hill, aye. Mitchell? Aye. Mitchell, aye. Bill's out. Okay,
all right,
now we
thank
need
you.
to do
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, and some housekeeping.
Mr. Hagman, would you like to be added to the consent calendar?
All right, Mr. Hagman wants to be added.
Anything in blue?
Okay. All right. On call, AB 8 Uber. That fails 2-2. We will have reconsideration.
Without objection.
Without objection. AB 67 Uber.
What item number is that?
Item number 3.
That's failed 3-2.
That's failed 3-2. And then item number AB 142 Fuentes.
What item number?
Item number 5.
Call it absentees.
Absentees.
Cedillo?
Aye.
Cedillo, that bill's out.
All right, that bill is
People
out.
want to check with me for add-ons?
All right, does anybody need to add on, or you can check with the clerk? And the rules as well.
Yes, and then we can adjourn.
All right, we're going to add you to the rules. All right, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.